else? Krishnera of Lord Krishna. Viyoge in separation. Yata as many. Prema loving affairs. Chestita activities. Asvadiya tasting them. Purna fulfilled. Kaila made. Apana own. Vanchita desires. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. In separation from Krishna, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu relished all these ecstatic activities, and thus he fulfilled his own desires. Please repeat. In separation from Krishna. Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu relished all these ecstatic activities, and thus he fulfilled his own desires. Purport. In the beginning of Caitanya Charitamrita, it is said that Lord Caitanya appeared to taste the feelings Radharani felt upon seeing Krishna. Krishna himself could not understand the ecstatic feelings of Radharani toward him. Therefore, he desired to accept the role of Radharani and thereby taste these feelings. Lord Caitanya is Krishna with the feelings of Radharani. In other words, he is a combination of Radha and Krishna. It is therefore said, Shri Krishna Caitanya Radhe Krishna Nahi Anya. By worshipping Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu alone, one can relish the loving affairs of Radha and Krishna together. One should therefore try to understand Radha Krishna, not directly but through Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu and through his devotees. Srila Narottam Das Thakur therefore says, Rupa Raghunatha Pade Haibi Akuti Kabi Hama Bujaba Se Jugala Piriti. When shall I develop a mentality of service towards Sri Rupa Goswami, Sanatana Goswami, Raghunath Das Goswami, and the other devotees of Lord Caitanya, and thus become eligible to understand the pastimes of Sri Radha and Krishna? So we can read a few more verses. Text 44. The pastimes of Lord Caitanya Mahaprabhu are unlimited. How much can a small living entity elaborate about those transcendental pastimes? Text 45. If Sheshanagara Ananta personally were to make the pastimes of Lord Caitanya into codes, even with his thousands of mouths, there was no possibility that he could find their limit. Text 46. Devotees like Sri Sarup Damodar and Murari Gupta have recorded all the principal pastimes of Lord Caitanya in the form of notes after deliberate consideration. Text 47. The notes kept by Sri Sarup Damodar and Murari Gupta are the basis of this book. Following those notes, I write of all the pastimes of the Lord. The notes have been described elaborately by Vrindavan Das Thakur. Text 48. Srila Vrindavan Das Thakur, the authorized writer of the pastimes of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, is as good as Srila Vyasadeva. He has described the pastimes in such a way as to make them sweeter and sweeter. Text 49. Being afraid of his books becoming too voluminous, he left some places without vivid descriptions. I shall try to fill those places as far as possible. Text 50. The transcendental pastimes of Lord Caitanya have actually been relished by Srila Vrindavan Das Thakur. I am simply trying to chew the remnants of foodstuffs left by him. Text 51. My dear devotees of Lord Caitanya, let me now write the codes of the Adi-lila in brief, because it is not possible to describe these pastimes in full. Text 52. To fulfill a particular desire within his mind, Lord Krishna, Rajendra Kumara, decided to descend on this planet after mature contemplation. Text 53. Lord Krishna therefore first allowed his family of superiors to descend on the earth. I shall try to describe them in brief, because it is not possible to describe them fully. Text 54 and 55. Lord Sri Krishna, before appearing as Lord Caitanya, requested these devotees to precede him. Sri Sachidevi, Jagannath Mishra, Madhavendra Puri, Keshava Bharati, Ishvara Puri, Advaita Acharya, Srivas Pandit, Acharya Ratna, Vijayanidhi and Thakur Haridas. So I'll just read the translation for the verse on the board again. In separation from Krishna, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu relished all these ecstatic activities, and thus he fulfilled his own desires. So Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, as described by Srila Prabhupada here, Sri Krishna Chaitanya Radha Krishna Nahi Anya, that Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is none other than a combination of Radha and Krishna. So he's come in the mood of Lord Chaitanya to relish the love that Radharani has for Krishna. So Krishna, as Prabhupada describes, Krishna can't understand the love of Radha for him. So then the Lord comes in this special form, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, a combination of Radha and Krishna, to understand this loving mood that Radharani has for Krishna. So Lord Chaitanya, he comes for these internal reasons, and then he comes for his external reasons of spreading the Sankirtan movement. And he did this spreading the Sankirtan movement all throughout India by chanting, dancing and distributing prasadam, these simple activities, which Srila Prabhupada also spread the movement by these simple activities, simply chanting kirtan, spreading the Hare Krishna, chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, dancing in ecstasy and taking prasadam. Simple activities that anyone and everyone can take part in and experience ecstatic symptoms, experience love for Krishna, experience a higher taste, experience freedom from the miseries of material existence. So these pastimes of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu are as powerful as the pastimes of Krishna and Radha and all their associates, because Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and all his associates are actually non-different from these associates in Krishna Lila, as described in the last verse we read. That Lord Sri Krishna is appearing, before appearing as Lord Chaitanya, requested these devotees to precede him. So all these different devotees mentioned, like Sri Sachidevi, Jagannath Mishra, Lord Chaitanya's parents, that they are Krishna's parents, Nanda Maharaj and Yashoda Mai in Krishna's pastimes. So Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he's also descending from the spiritual world, from Goloka Vrindavan. Lord Krishna has his pastimes with all his associates and devotees in Goloka Vrindavan, and also Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has his pastimes with his devotees and associates in Goloka Vrindavan. And Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he's also brought the Yuga Dham directly from Goloka Vrindavan, the chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. What's that verse? I'm trying to remember that verse where it describes that the chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra is directly transported from the spiritual world, from Goloka Vrindavan. But we're so unfortunate, we don't have a taste for the chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. But if we go on chanting and dancing and performing other devotional activities, then eventually we will develop a taste for service to Krishna, service to Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Just like Srila Prabhupada says, the fan, when you turn the fan off, it doesn't stop immediately, it slows down gradually. So similarly, when we're performing devotional service, we have so many anarthas and unwanted activities and sinful reactions within our heart. And these activities don't become completely cleansed immediately, but after much devotional service, then the heart is completely cleansed and we can come to properly understand who the Lord is and our relationship with Krishna. Atasya Krishna Namari Nabhavegraham Idriya Sevan Mukha Hijivado Svayameva Svarachida. That these blunt material senses cannot properly understand the nature of Krishna's name, form, qualities and pastimes. But when we begin to render devotional service to Krishna by using our tongue to chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, and taste the remnants of Krishna Prasadam, then the tongue gradually becomes purified and all the other senses become purified, and one can gradually come to understand the transcendental nature of Krishna and our relationship with him. So Lord Caitanya Mahaprabhu, he came in the mood of a devotee to show us how to become a devotee ourselves. And he was the greatest devotee, always in the mood of wanting to serve Krishna, serve Radha and Krishna, spread their glories. So he came to teach us how to have this mood of being a devotee. And this is the secret, to have this mood of being always engaged in devotional service. In the material world, the disease is that all of us, every living entity, wants to be the master. No one wants to be the servant. In material life, it's considered abominable to be a servant, like to clean the floors or clean the dishes or clean the toilets is not considered very desirable. Everyone wants to be the top dog. People want to be have a big position in society. Politician, a president, a prime minister, a lawyer, a doctor, some big position. But this is not our natural position. Jivera Sarupa Hoya Krishnera Nichadas, the natural position of the living entity is that we're eternally a servant of Krishna. And this is our natural position, is to render loving service to Krishna and his devotees. Just like Srila Prabhupada says, the natural quality of water is liquidity. Sometimes that water becomes frozen, but it's not the natural state. And when the sun comes out in due course of time, the water becomes unfrozen, comes back to its original state. The nature of the microphone is to emit loud sound. If it's not doing that, then it's out of its nature. The nature of a chili is to be hot, or sugar is to be sweet. If you find that the chili is sweet and the sugar is hot, then there's something wrong. So the nature of the living entity is to always be in this mood of service. Servant of the servant. It's not that we're directly even the servant of Krishna or the servant of Lord Caitanya Mahaprabhu. We're the servant of the servant of the servant of Lord Caitanya and Krishna 1,000 times removed. We should have this humble mentality. And in the Bhagavatam it describes that Vasudeva Bhagavati Bhakta Yoga Prayojita Janiyat Yasavairagyam Gyanam Yadahaitukam. By rendering devotional service unto Krishna, one automatically acquires causeless knowledge and detachment from the world. So this is the secret. If we can have this mood of always wanting to, following in the footsteps of all the great acharyas and Lord Caitanya Mahaprabhu himself, who was acting as the greatest servant, the greatest devotee, have this mood of serving the Lord, serving the devotees, serving the mission of our spiritual master, then this is actually the only way we can become purified and gradually come to see Krishna face to face, see Krishna everywhere. This is the goal of life, Anta Narayana Smriti, as described in the Bhagavatam, that at the end of life one should be able to remember Krishna. And not that just at the end of life, but all through life. We should be in this consciousness that we can always remember Krishna and never forget Krishna. said that these are the two most important rules and regulations: to always remember Krishna, never forget Krishna. All the other rules and regulations are hinged on these two things. So we have to practice. It's not that we can think, well, I'll just take up spiritual life when I'm old, when I can't do any material activities anymore, then I'll take up Krishna consciousness then. It doesn't work like that. You have to practice all throughout your life to be able to remember Krishna at the most crucial time, the time of death. This story of an old man, and he was not a devotee, and on his deathbed he wasn't thinking of Krishna or praying to Krishna, and he was just talking to his relatives and telling them, no, don't forget to do this when I leave this world. No, you have to pay the bills, and you have to look after the house and look after the animals. And his family members, they weren't devotees, so they couldn't give any Krishna conscious benefit or advice. And then he couldn't speak anymore, and so all the family members were thinking, we've got to, get the doctor to give him some medicines to make him speak, so that we can find out where his money is. So this is the mentality of the family members of someone who's about to die, a materialistic person. And the materialistic person, if he's had no training, then there's no possibility at the time of death he can think of the Lord and pray to the Lord with fervent prayers and chant the holy names and think of the Lord's pastimes. But in Krishna consciousness, we're so fortunate that we have this opportunity to be trained in Krishna consciousness 24 hours a day. We have the opportunity to engage in devotional service 24 hours a day, following the footsteps of Lord Caitanya Mahaprabhu, who he was always engaged in chanting Hare Krishna, dancing, taking prasadam with his devotees, preaching Krishna consciousness. So this should also be our business, that we engage in these different activities to help us always remember Krishna. Kirtan, cooking for the Lord, cleaning the Lord's temple, preaching Krishna consciousness, bringing other people to Krishna consciousness, associating with devotees, taking prasadam, all these wonderful activities that we have the opportunity to do 24 hours a day. And these activities are wonderful activities in which we can remember Krishna at the same time. As Krishna says to Arjuna in the 8th chapter, Tasmat Savish Kaleshu Mamanushmara Yujita, that therefore, Arjuna, you should always think of me in the form of Krishna, at the same time carry out your prescribed duty of fighting. With your activities dedicated to me and your mind and intelligence fixed on me, you will attain me without doubt. So for so many lifetimes, millions of lifetimes, we've wasted our life in materialistic activities of sense gratification and different forms of life in this material world. And we can see that no one is happy. Everyone is in anxiety. Everyone except a pure devotee is in anxiety. Even as aspiring devotees, we experience anxiety, material anxiety. Of course, we should try and dovetail that material anxiety to anxiety for Krishna. Be greedy to serve Krishna, greedy to be engaged in Krishna service, greedy to preach Krishna consciousness. But unless we're on that 100% pure platform, there's always some anxiety in the material world. And especially those who are not engaged in devotional activities at all, their lives are full of anxiety. Even we see people when they go to their so-called places of enjoyment, the clubs, the nightclubs, the horse races, the pubs, they're stressed even in those places because they're missing the point. They're not connecting with the powerhouse. Just like a little boy, he can ride his bike. He can ride maybe 10, 15 kilometres an hour, but if he ties his bike to the back of a big truck, he can go 100 kilometres an hour. So how much can we do? How much happiness can we experience outside of Krishna consciousness in this world? The distress far outweighs the happiness. But if we just plug into the lotus feet of Krishna, Guru and Krishna, then we can be ecstatic 24 hours a day, even in the depths of Kali Yuga. Even though there's so much misery and suffering and anxiety surrounding us, devotee can be ecstatic and blissful 24 hours a day. So therefore, Lord Rishabdev says to his 100 sons, Nayam deho deha bajamra loke kasan kaman ahati vidbujamye. Therefore, my dear boys, one who has been awarded this human form of life should not labour hard day and night for sense gratification which is available to hogs and dogs that eat stool. One should engage in penance and austerity to attain the divine position of devotional service, in which one becomes completely satisfied and happy. So in material life, people are wasting their whole life, like the Bhagavatam describes, Prahlad Maharaj describes in the 7th canto how people are wasting their life. The child is engaging in frivolous activities from 0 to 20. The child engages in frivolous activities, and from 20 to 60 he engages in just activities of making money and sex life, and from 60 till whenever he passes away he's in so many tribulations of old age and disease. And we see even the old people in their old age, they're engaging in useless activities, bowls, golf, so many mundane activities, especially in the old age when people should be devoting their lives much more to spiritual activity. So, while we have this human form of life, which is very rare, out of all the different species of life, it's very rare to get this human form of life. It's, as Prabhupada describes, the Bhagavatam describes, the living entity has been through all the 8,400,000 species of life. And eventually he gets this human form of life. And if he wastes that human form of life, then again he has to go through the 8,400,000 species of life. But in one short lifetime, Srila Prabhupada said, we can become fully Krishna conscious and go back to the spiritual world. And even if we don't go back to the spiritual world, then if we're Krishna conscious throughout this life, and if we're not completely perfect, then in our next life we'll have the opportunity to be born in a family of devotees. Suchinam Srimatam Gehe Yoga Brashta Bhajayate. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita that one who's falls away after short practice of Krishna consciousness is born in a family of aristocratic, like brahmanas. But one who practices Krishna consciousness his whole life and is not successful, he's born into a family of devotees, which is very auspicious. Just we see little kids here coming to the temple from their very childhood, even before their childhood in the womb. They're hearing kirtan, they're hearing classes, they're taking prasadam that their mother is ingesting. So fortunate, these living entities, even from very young age, taken to Krishna consciousness. That's right, that verse I was trying to remember before. Galoka Premadana Hani Nama Sankirtana. That this chanting of Hare Krishna, this is the Yugadam, this is the process in which we can actually become completely purified and reawaken our pure love for Krishna. All the other processes in previous ages, Satya Yuga, people lived for up to 100,000 years. They had to meditate on the Lord within the heart for up to 60,000 years, perform great austerities, live in the Himalayas. In Treta Yuga, they had to perform great, huge fire sacrifices, offering tons of ghee and gold into the fire, offering with perfect mantras. They lived up to 10,000 years. In the next Yuga, Dwapara Yuga, people lived up to 1,000 years, and they had to. The process was huge temple worship. But in Kali Yuga, we have a maximum of 100 years. Even people don't live that long. That has been decreased, as the Bhagavatam describes every day, day by day. Duration of life, bodily strength, religion, etc. These things have decreased day by day in Kali Yuga. Therefore, we've been given this very simple process. Simply chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he gave us, by example, he set the example himself by these simple activities: chanting Hare Krishna, dancing in ecstasy, taking prasadam, preaching a little bit. And he broke open the storehouse of love of Godhead and flooded the whole land. Everyone was inundated with the Sankirtan movement, whether people were pious or impious, or old or young, women or children, animals, as we understand. He went to the Jharkhand forest, and even the lions and the tigers and the snakes were dancing and chanting Hare Krishna. Of course, we may not have the ability to make the animals chant and dance and come to the temple, but at least we can attempt to invite the human beings to come and engage in Krishna consciousness. At the same time, we can, by chanting loudly the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, even the immovable trees and all the other living entities can attain immense benefit and get a human form of life in the next life. The other day there was a cockroach in my house, and he was still alive, and I scooped him up in a dustpan, and I took him outside, and I was thinking I won't just throw him in the bushes because he'll probably come back inside. And my son was following me, and so I thought I'll put him in the garbage bin. He's got enough food there to have for a whole lifetime. So as I was about to put him in the bin, my son, 5-year-old son, Krishna Balaram, said, aren't we going to chant Hare Krishna to him so he can get a human form of life in his next life? And I said, okay. So we chanted the Hare Krishna mantra to him. And then Krishna Balaram said, does that mean in his next life he'll come back as a human being in the garbage bin? So we can't estimate the benefit that living entities can derive from hearing the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, chanting, engaging in devotional service. Like Srila Prabhupada said, even one word, if people read one word or one line or one page of these books, their lives can completely be changed for eternal benefit. They can be inspired to take up Krishna consciousness. Just many devotees have just met devotees once, or they got a little bit of prasadam, or they got a book and read a few pages. They heard the chanting and they became inspired to come to the temple or get some books and take up Krishna consciousness in their own lives. So it's so powerful, we can't understand the power of this Krishna consciousness movement. But we're all like examples of the power. You know, for so many lifetimes, we were engaged in nonsense activities, completely so far away from Krishna consciousness. We couldn't be any further away if we tried. Like one devotee, Prabhupada disciple, she passed away a long time ago, Gauri Devi Dasi, she was a big book distributor. She said, most of the people I meet on book distribution, they couldn't be any further away if they tried from Krishna consciousness. It's like that when you go out and meet people, that they're so absorbed in materialistic activities with no understanding whatsoever of the value of the human form of life or who they are, that they are not this body, that they are an eternal spirit soul, that they have an eternal relationship with Krishna, that they cannot be happy in this material world. There's no understanding whatsoever. There's no education in the schools and universities to this understanding. Like Srila Prabhupada said, where's the university that is teaching the science of the soul, the most basic necessary understanding? If we don't understand this premise that I'm not this body, I'm an eternal soul, servant of Krishna, and this is not my real home, and I cannot be happy by sense gratification, I can only be happy by ecstatic devotional service, then all our other materialistic activities will fall short, will fail. And that's why this whole materialistic civilization is misdirected, and so many problems are there, so many social problems, so much crime, drug addiction, war, and natural disasters because of karmic reactions. And people are, suicide, the list goes on of so many problems. And it all stems from the misdirected leaders. As the Bhagavatam describes, one should not become a spiritual master, a father, or mother, worshipable demigod unless he can deliver his dependents from the ocean of birth and death. So it's a very responsible position to be a leader in society. So we all have to be, in Christian consciousness, we all have to be leaders to inspire others to... We may not be a Diksha Guru, but everyone can be a Shiksha Guru, giving spiritual advice, giving Christian consciousness, giving training to so many other devotees, giving inspiration. So we should all think like that, that I'm like I'm an example for so many other people. I should act in an exemplary way. As Sanatana Goswami said to Haridas Thakur, that some people, they behave very nicely, but they do not preach very nicely. And other people preach very nicely, but they do not behave very nicely. And he said about Haridas Thakur that simultaneously you're acting very nicely in Krishna consciousness and preaching very nicely, therefore you're qualified to be the spiritual master of the entire world. So we may have the ability to preach very nicely the philosophy of Krishna consciousness, but in our own life, if we're not following, we're not chanting our rounds, or we're not following the principles, we're not coming to the temple, then no, actions speak louder than words, right? It's more important to act very nicely, even if you're not so expert at presenting the philosophy of Krishna consciousness. But best if you can do both things. So we should think that, I may not be a big personality in Krishna consciousness, I don't have any position, I'm not a temple president or a guru or a head pujari or sannyasi, but just by us being here, especially devotees who've been in Krishna consciousness for many years, so many younger devotees get inspiration just by seeing the older devotees coming regularly to the temple and to the temple programs. And not that we just come when it's time for our class to give Bhagavatam class. We should come for everyone's class as much as possible. Everyone's kirtan, not just come for, because I'm leading kirtan, so I'm turning up this morning, but anyone else's kirtan, I'm not going to turn up to the temple. So sometimes we see that happens. Devotees, only time you see them is they come to give their own class, then you don't see them for the rest of the week. So no, we should come as much as possible. Srila Prabhupada's built these temples, he's created these programs like morning and evening programs, the sandwich program, right? Prabhupada said, like when you have a sandwich and you have a nice filling inside and you have the wrapper around, then it stays together. So when we take shelter of the morning and evening programs in our service through the day, and we follow very nicely these programs, and our Krishna consciousness, nothing can break us, nothing can attract us back to the material world. So how can we expect to become Krishna conscious and become a lover of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Lord Krishna, and develop Krishna Prem, and become free from all unwanted desires and attachments, unless we follow the program set out, chalked out by the acharyas, the pure devotees like Srila Prabhupada. If you don't chant our japa, if we don't come to Bhagavatam class, if you don't come to morning programs like Mangaladi, Tulsiadi, of course, many of us, especially in Grihastha life, it may be difficult to come to the whole program every day, but at least we can try to come to some of the program, and we can try to perform the other parts of the program with our family in our own house. So we need all these activities to become fully Krishna conscious. Whatever Srila Prabhupada has set up, he knows that we need all these activities. Mangalarti, the Shingadev prayers, Tulsi prayers, Jaya Radha Madhava, Bhagavatam class, Prasadam, associating with devotees, so many activities of service. We need these activities, otherwise it's very difficult to advance in Krishna consciousness. So, and the main thing throughout all these services, we should have this mood of service, that I want to serve, not be served. Even in Krishna consciousness, sometimes we may have this mood that I just want to be served. I just want to line up and take prasadam. Sometimes we may not have this mood that I want to serve the devotees, but there's 6 loving exchanges, right? In the Nectar of Instruction, Rupa Goswami says, Tadati pratigrinati koyam akyati prichate. Serving prasadam, receiving prasadam, giving gifts, receiving gifts, revealing your mind in confidence, inquiring confidentially. These 6 loving exchanges should be there amongst devotees, and we can develop more stronger bonds amongst each other. So we have to practice these activities. So, and we've probably all experienced it's much nicer to get a greater taste and ecstatic feeling when you serve devotees than when they serve you. Of course, sometimes we should be have to serve each other. Sometimes it's nice we sit down and like serve and be served like prasadam. But that's my experience, that it's even more ecstatic when you serve devotees. So, as much as possible, we should try to engage in varieties of devotional service and always be trying to see how not just serving Krishna directly, but of course we cannot serve Krishna directly. We have to serve through the devotees, through the spiritual master. So we should be thinking, I cannot serve Krishna directly, but I have to serve his devotees who are serving him. So many wonderful devotees. Let me serve them. Let me assist them in their Krishna consciousness. And that way I can serve Lord Caitanya, I can serve Krishna. Okay, so we'll just read the verse again. In separation from Krishna, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu relished all these ecstatic activities, and thus he fulfilled his own desires. Does anyone have any questions or comments?
I have a question. There was a bit of discussion in Russian Yatra. Can a husband be a Shiksha Guru, his wife? What's your perspective? Because you mentioned everyone can be Shiksha Guru, so hence the question.
Yeah, for sure. And it could be vice versa too. The wife can give, some advice and realization to the husband as well, so they could be a Shiksha Guru for each other. But generally the husband is meant to be the leading person in the family, so he's more in that role of being the guru of the family. It's said that in the Vedic culture, the husband is like, for the wife, is like God incarnate in the form of the husband, And so she makes advancement by diligently, faithfully serving him and being attached to him, fulfilling his desires. But sometimes maybe the wife has more realization, and maybe she's more detached and more Krishna conscious, so therefore she could act sometimes as a Shiksha Guru, and there's no harm in that. Sometimes maybe the husband is struggling in Krishna consciousness, or maybe he's given up Krishna consciousness and the wife is very Krishna conscious, so the wife can maybe help to bring him back to Krishna consciousness. Just like Prabhupada said about his sister Pishima, her husband was like an alcoholic, and he was somewhat violent, but she just stuck with him and she tolerated him, and eventually due to her purity and her association, he gave up his nonsense ways and became a devotee. So, and sometimes even, like the Bhagavatam describes, maybe I can't remember exactly in the 11th canto how we have so many gurus. The 11th canto, is it? That even can learn from a prostitute what not to do, right? There's so many animals we can be like our gurus, can learn from their mistakes, what not to do. So even sometimes our own children can be like our guru, they may teach us so many lessons. You have to learn great patience and tolerance having children, right? So in this way, we can learn from learn from everyone. But as I said before, generally the husband is like the guru of the family, and most of the other family members take advice from him. If he's Krishna conscious, of course, if he's not Krishna conscious, then he cannot be in that position of being a Shiksha guru. So, yes, would you like to add to microphone?
The woman who's rightly situated, or the wife who's rightly situated, she can be considered the goddess of fortune.
Right. That's a good point.
Can I add something? So
Yeah.
the main argument against that was that it's kind of vice versa, being a guru and a husband at the same time, it's different mood. And sometimes, the term guru is taken a bit too lightly, because guru is heavy. And a husband can be a counselor or a leader in the family, but not Shiksha guru. But other people would say that, well, he used to be, previously a Shiksha guru or the whole family, as you mentioned. So there was a little bit of back and forth. So I just, wanted to see what you're on.
Well, quite often there may be that familiarity. There is quite often, a lot of familiarity between the husband and wife, so maybe it's difficult for the wife to accept the husband as guru, as a Shiksha guru. Not that it's a formal position of being a guru, but even especially in Western society, a lot of it's difficult for a lot of wives to accept their husband in this role of taking advice, taking instruction, or maybe sometimes, as I said, maybe the wife has good advice and good instruction. Maybe difficult for the husband to take from the wife because there's too much familiarity, and we haven't been trained to take advice from anyone practically. The whole Western disease is no authority, accept no authority, right? So even in the school systems, the students, they don't really pay so much respect for their teachers, and rightly so, because their teachers are not setting an example, like Prabhupada says in that verse, Yad Yad Acharati Shreshtas Tad Tadi Vetarojana. Whatever action a great man performs, common men follow, and whatever acts he sets by exemplary acts, all the world pursues. And Srila Prabhupada says in the purport, a teacher cannot teach his students to stop smoking if he's smoking himself. So no wonder the students in the school systems, university systems are not respecting their teachers and their parents, because their parents and teachings are setting a very bad example themselves. So we're not trained with that mood of respect to others or superiors, even if they may be our equals, even our juniors, we don't give them respect. Even what to speak of our seniors, even juniors or equals, we don't like generally to hear advice from someone else. We think, I know everything myself, so this is our disease in Kali Yuga. But we should be thinking that I can learn from anyone. Of course, we can especially learn from senior gurus, senior Shiksha gurus, and our Diksha guru. But we should be thinking I can learn from anyone in this world. Anyone can give me some knowledge and realization. Not think that I'm such an advanced devotee, I've been around for so many years, I can't learn anything. What can this new Bhakta or Bhaktin teach me, No, we can learn so much from their example, by their learning, their understanding, their inspiration in Krishna consciousness. Just like we see so many young devotees here, and we can get so much inspiration and so much realization in Krishna consciousness just by seeing their wonderful example, their enthusiasm. They're here every day at the temple. They're doing so much service through the day. Okay, so thank you for the question. I think we'll have to finish now, unless anyone has a last question. It's time for Prashadam. Sri Caitanya Caritamrita ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Gaur Premanande. Hare Hare.